Good evening. It's a Friday night. It is not a Thursday night like usual, but that's because last night was, well, this morning for us lot on this side of the pond, but for America and other parts of the world, last night was round one of the 2025 NFL draft. Joining me, of course, is the two other members, Ed and Nathan. As Colts fans, I mean, we will get into the full round one recap, gents, but I'm going to start off by saying I just don't know how Chris Ballard does it. I just don't know how he does it. The bloke could sell ice to Eskimos. I don't get how it works. I mean, you two, different scenarios, but I believe you both stayed up for it. Who wants to go first on what it was like?
Go on, Nathan. I'll let you take the lead on this.
Yeah. Well, Ed and I were texting the whole way through, so I felt like I was in the same room in a sense, but which was really nice as well. But yeah, just a crazy evening, and before we unpack the round as a whole, I'm sure any fellow Colts fans watching, it was a tricky one for our heart rate. When Dallas were on the clock, well, when Chicago were on the clock, and Colston Loveland's name was called, then it gets to Dallas, and the commissioner teases us with announcing the name Tyler, and then you the Colts are on the clock, and Tyler Warren has fallen. That am I awake? I thought almost. I thought I was asleep at one point. I had to stand up. And next thing we know, we've got our guy. Warren's a Colt. Amazing feeling. Truthfully, I can't put it better than Chris Ballard did. I've not felt as good about a Colts pick since Quentin Nelson. This feels like when we took Quentin Nelson, and at that point, I'll hand over to Ed to get Ed's thoughts too.
I think it's an absolute slam dunk first round pick, isn't it? It's like has been said. It's the perfect sort of combination of team need versus sort of best player available. Everybody knows the Colts tight end room needed refreshing. There was I think it comes down to personal preference between the two top tight ends on the board, whether you're Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren. I think most of us Colts fans kind of seem to be the general consensus. Everybody sort of wanted Tyler Warren, so I think everybody's happy with this pick. It was a bit of a long sort of stretch from when Chicago called Colston Loveland. My concern wasn't the teams picking before us, it was somebody maybe coming up and jumping us if they wanted him. And I also would, as Nathan said, we were sort of exchanging texts last night, and when the Colts were about to be on the clock, Nathan chucked in the Jalen Walker still being there. And I wonder if Chris Ballard will do this instead, which really didn't help my nerve.
Sorry, Ed. Sorry.
At that point, it was that kind of thought of, hadn't considered the prospect of Warren being available and Ballard just going in a totally different direction just to throw everybody off. But yeah, I think, look, without going over stuff that we've talked about for the last few months about how bad the Colts tight end room was last month, I've seen more posts today. I think Nate Atkins, who I'm sure we all follow, put a post up saying that the whole year the Colts tight end room combined for like 14 catches over a season, and Tyler Warren did that in one game. You can't underestimate what an uplift this is, and what a difference that makes. And now look at our offense going in, straight away just by adding the one player, offense of Tyler Warren, the wide receivers core that I think is really good. You've got Jonathan Taylor. Still, you've got Khalil Herbert coming in. God help any teams, if the Colts are sort of third and short or fourth and short going into next year, we're just going to go for it, aren't we? Let's be honest. And you know, the other
Hopefully.
thing is another aspect is Warren's versatility and what he can bring. So yeah, really, really pleased with this. It's a great start to the draft for the Colts fans. One we deserved.
Yeah, it made a pleasant change, and we will no doubt we'll do a deep dive on all the draft picks after the full draft is over. But I'd never really researched Tyler Warren because I just didn't think it was possible. Knowing Chris Ballard, knowing the Colts, I thought there's not a chance he goes below Loveland after watching a little bit of both. Like I say, surface level research from me. I'm not a big college guy, so the personal preference, I personally don't get not taking Warren if he was there, but hey, who knows? So what we'll do then is, before we get back onto Warren, I'll quickly run through the first round. If you boys want to stop me at anyone, stop me so we can talk about it. So any shocks, anything that caught your eye last night, just stop me. But I'll read through quickly. So obviously, Cam Ward to Tennessee, QB, pretty obvious. This is where the fun began, right? And maybe you two gents can explain it better to me, but I don't really get what Jacksonville are doing here. Trading up, I think that realistically they gave up a first next year.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
there's a couple of other picks in there, but not massive ones. To pick up Travis Hunter at 2, I saw that and I don't understand it. So I was hoping you two could shed a bit more light.
I think. Yeah, it was kind of crazy seeing, that trade go down. But I think Rich Eisen put it better than I ever will be able to, which was, the Jags had a glaring need at cornerback. Liam Cohen has just arrived, new GM, young, hot shot. You tend to swing big at an offensive player in that scenario. Cohen is, a really creative head coach, which, Trevor Lawrence kind of needs to take that jump forward. And as Eisen said, why not just package your first and second together for one player who can play both ways in, those two positions that you kind of want. And as the night went on, Rappaport was reporting that, they're definitely going to play him both ways. That was in the Jags' mindset. And I'm not going to lie, it felt kind of rough that he's coming to the AFC South. I mean, I was mentally preparing to have to face Gene T twice a year, but now we've got to go against this absolute, unicorn really of a player, and is coming to the South. So, yeah, I think it was Jacksonville quite literally swinging for the fences.
Anything to add, Ed?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, first of all, I'd like to thank Cleveland for doing that and stitching us up by bringing Hunter to the AFC South. As you both know, I was a big sort of campaign of keep Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter out of the AFC South at all costs. So I was a little bit pissed to see Jacksonville trade up. I think it's one of those trades where you could argue that both teams kind of are happy with it. Like there doesn't necessarily have to be a clear winner. Cleveland are desperately needing a rebuild. They've got themselves some really good picks out of that, and they still picked at 5 and got themselves a really good, obviously I know we'll come on to it, but they've got themselves a good player, and they've got some more picks that they can use today. And like Nathan said, Jacksonville, under new management, have wanted to make a splash, and what bigger splash than taking the consensus best player out of the draft, at number 2. But yeah, from a selfish point of view, I'm not looking forward to playing him twice a year for the next however many years that he hangs around in Florida. It's a bit annoying. And on the Genty point as well, I might add, we've got the Raiders on our schedule this year, so we've got to play him as well. So
Yeah.
it seems that we're getting them all. But like I say, I think this is to switch sports slightly, because I was thinking about this today earlier, Harrison. I know you're an Arsenal fan.
Mm-hmm.
What it reminded me of, if you pardon the switch, but the comparison I think of is when Arsenal bought Declan Rice. You know, when you can make a transfer that both teams win at.
Yeah.
I think this trade is one that both teams, you could say, have probably won. Cleveland, by taking Travis Hunter, they're not Travis Hunter away from competing. You know, I don't think Jacksonville are either, by the way. But, you know, I think Cleveland, you know, I felt a bit for their fans when it went down last night, because they'd spent all day probably however long building up to the prospect of getting Travis Hunter, and then to trade out and get a defensive tackle is a little bit of an anticlimax. But with your sensible head on, I think it's a good move. And like I say, Jacksonville make a splash, and Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter is going to be a problem. You know, that is a problem.
I'm no hate on the kid, right? Because obviously he's a phenomenal fucking athlete. To play two-way at college level is fucking impeccable. By all means. I'm maybe an old man yelling at a cloud or a bit of a dinosaur. I don't think you can do that at NFL level. Are you telling me, you know, wide receiver, you play one snap as a wide receiver, you come in, you run a slant route, all of a sudden you're getting whacked by a 6'6", 240-pound linebacker. You're then going to go and play, that's your third down. So you're off to play, and then you're back in to play cornerback, and you've got potential. No hate, and I obviously hope it doesn't work for him in Jacksonville. But if we drafted someone who was coming to the Colts as a wide receiver cornerback, I would be saying no. And again, like this is easy for me to say, right? I don't have to rebuild a franchise. I don't have to look at new ways of doing things. And again, just an old man yelling at a cloud. I think they're saying he's going to be two-way. I wouldn't like to get back on the field after a third down and I've just been whacked because my quarterback's throwing me into double coverage. But we've got plenty of time to discuss that. So let's crack on then. So then the Giants went Carter. Campbell went to New England. Cleveland obviously back at 5 took Mason Graham, great pick, like that. As we said, the Raiders took Ashton Genty. A bit of a mixed bag, I think. Not the player, the actual pick itself at the time. Membu went to New York Jets. Sorry, I couldn't read that then. McMillan went to Carolina. Kelvin Banks.
I was surprised. On the Carolina. Yeah. I thought, because again, this just to kind of, last night we were, like I say, we were chatting about it. Carolina was a team that we maybe signposted could be interested in trading out of that number 8 spot potentially to get more picks. When they stuck, and again, this might just be because I've looked at so many mock drafts that I've literally forgotten how many I've looked at. I was so convinced they were going to go defense that when they took McMillan, I was a little bit surprised. But again, I think that's actually quite a smart move, given Bryce Young. You know, they're in a similar position to us, aren't they? With their, you know, quarterback drafted, same draft as Richardson. Obviously, Bryce Young went number 1, didn't he, in that draft? They're in a kind of similar situation. They've got to make it work. So I thought giving Young another weapon, and again, similar situation to us in a division that is winnable, the NFC South.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pick was pretty shocking. And I think if Tet doesn't really take that role by storm, you know, he's already heavily critiqued, or at least has been, in the 2 weeks up to the draft. And with Carolina, who've just got so many glaring needs on defense, Jalen Walker was staring at them, ready to be picked, and gave me a minor heart attack thinking Ballard would take him because of it. It was just like, who passes on Georgia edges? Carolina pass on them apparently. A fascinating pick, but let's see how it works. I mean, Xavier Legette last year was a pick for them at wide receiver, so they're slowly building their receiving core.
So to carry on, Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Saints. This was obviously, and we'll stop a little here, was the big one for us Colts fans, is Chicago went to Colston Loveland from Michigan. I mean, Chris Ballard said it best when he said to a reporter, "You'll have to go and ask them. I have no idea, and I guess we just got lucky." We spoke about it, and my personal opinion of Loveland was he was too high to draft at 14. That was my personal opinion. If we traded back and got him early, mid-20s, fine. But at 14, with Warren still available, he would have been too high to draft. And I guess, are they looking for a future, sort of like what... I don't even know. I guess I just don't know why they didn't go Warren.
It must just come down to their board and how they saw it. I mean, I was surprised that they went tight end anyway, because they've got Cole Kmet, who's a good weapon already for Caleb. But obviously, again, new head coach coming from Detroit. Maybe he saw a bit of Sam Laporta in Colston Loveland. Thought maybe he could get good production from him. Like I say, I think it just must come down to how the scouts and teams see their boards, to be honest with you, in terms of, I think there was a divide, obviously, with teams about whether it was Warren or Loveland, and luckily for us, it seemed to work in our favour.
Can I ask you then a question, Nathan?
Yeah, go for it.
What dirt did Matt Eberflus give to Chris Ballard the day of the draft to stop the Bears taking Tyler Warren?
I think we can thank Matt if that is the case, mate. So maybe you're on to something there. And as we said earlier, they must be watching the show, right? But look, I think Ed's spot on. Indy doesn't necessarily have to feed the tight end room, and wouldn't have had to, even if if the picks were reversed, right? Whatever kid comes through is tight end one, as far as I'm concerned, and then there's really not anybody else. Cole Kmet is an absolutely serviceable player, great blocker. Took a pretty big step this year in terms of his scoring production as well. And I think this is a Ben Johnson pick. I don't know if you guys have seen the video that come out today of the Bears draft room when they made the call to Loveland. There is no energy in the room apart from when Ben speaks to him. So to me, this is Ben saying, "You sign me as the head coach. I want this player." And thank you, Ben. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Ben.
So it's sort of an understanding in Indy that Chris Ballard builds the team for his head coach. Is going off what your head coach wants a dangerous move because of how it's a different way, it's maybe not a way we're used to seeing, and we've got a whole lot of season to discuss power structures in an NFL organisation, so I won't get too deep into it. But it's just interesting. You say you think it's a Ben Johnson pick because maybe for those who are watching this who don't regularly watch the NFL, it's usually the GM who, fights for it, makes the final decision.
Yeah, I think you raise a great point. But for me, Johnson was the lottery ticket of this coaching cycle. I just think you've got to commit to a guy like that. Look at what Detroit have done for 2 years under Johnson. Just give the guy what he wants, is my opinion. Kind of like I said before we go live, sometimes you just got to keep it simple. And I think for the Bears, keeping it simple was Loveland, Warren, or Marion Hampton, running back, USC. I was really shocked they didn't take him.
Cool. Well, crack on. So 11, Mikael Williams to San Francisco. Then all three.
Who, by the way, I was going to say, San Francisco's not going to stop every single pick, I promise, Harrison, because otherwise we'll be to the end of the draft. I was going to say, San Francisco all of a sudden have become a team that have got holes everywhere. They've gone from sort of Super Bowl to all of a sudden that pick could have gone absolutely anywhere, couldn't it? They had holes, D-line, offensive line, potentially another weapon. They've got to pay Brock this summer, so they need to load up. So I was interested to see where they went. Again, we're playing them this year, so that's why I was more interested than I would be.
Surprised pick?
What was that? Sorry, mate.
Was you surprised at the pick?
No, in truth, no. It made a lot of sense, and I mean, just the thought prospect of Bosa on one side, him on the other, it's pretty scary, and it gives them 5 years of room on a very expensive D-line.
Okay, so like I was saying, the commissioner gave us all a heart attack at 12 when he mentioned Tyler. It was Tyler Booker to the Cowboys. Miami opting not to protect their quarterback, even though he just suffers concussion every single snap. They went Kenneth Grant, who I think is a good player. They're taking the Andrew Luck, Ryan Grigson approach.
I don't get that. I'm sorry. I thought they had to go offensive line first. Who was still on the board when they were picking? There was still Gray Zabel was still there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Obviously, Tyler would just come off the board. I'm trying to think. My brain's still a bit scrambled from last night. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised at that. I was a little bit surprised, but I was also in full panic mode by this point. So I wasn't really paying as much attention as I probably should have been. But yeah, I am surprised at that.
Yeah. The Colts obviously got their man, Tyler Warren. Jalen Walker, linebacker to the Falcons. Falcons. Cardinals choosing Walter Neuland from Ole Miss, D tackle. Bengals taking Shamar Stewart, edge. Again, they don't like protecting their quarterback. Go on.
Sorry. Well, what do we think that means for Trey Hendrickson? Obviously Trey Hendrickson's in a bit of a standoff. They draft an edge who has, he's a ballad pick all day long, isn't he? Shamar Stewart, yes. Unbelievable athlete with limited sort of numbers, but huge upside and potential. I wonder if that means that they're potentially planning for life without Hendrickson. Who knows?
You raise a great point, mate.
It definitely feels like they're trying to shorten his leverage. Maybe not all good in Cincinnati are a cheap team anyway. They're not the most richest team. Is probably a better way to put it. I don't know if they're cheap, but anyway, Gray Zabel to Seattle.
I loved that pick, by the way. I thought that was a home run.
Agreed.
I'm gonna butcher his name like many commentators will. Emeka Ibuka to Tampa Bay, Ohio State. Was that first player off the board? It was, wasn't it? Yeah, just checking. That was Ohio State's first player on the board, wide receiver. Don't talk to me about Ohio State wide receivers. I'm still upset about DK Metcalf going after Paris Campbell. Jardy Brown, cornerback to the Broncos, good pick for them.
Can we pause?
Yeah, go on, and you go. Yeah, wow.
This pick was terrifying. That secondary has just got it was insane anyway, because Pat Surtain can just cover anyone. He's proved that already in his young career, and now they've put another dog there. Reminded me of the Broncos pairing of Revis and Chris Harris Jr. I'm probably showing my age there, about 8 to 10 years ago, where you had Revis Island on one side and Chris Harris Jr. on the other. Good luck throwing into that.
You got anything to add, Ed?
No, I just think when that pick came out, that was my first reaction was, wow, that's, you've got Defensive Player of the Year and you've just added arguably the best corner to it. I mean, that's just a great pick, isn't it, for Denver? Superb. And the way that they've turned that from where they were sort of with Russell Wilson's contract and the cap hit they took, and everyone's saying there's going to be problems for ages. Sean Payton has turned them around, hasn't he? With some really, really good draft picks. I know Bo Nix came in last year and was outstanding. But yeah, that's a team that is going to be one to watch, I think.
Yep. Okay, so Derek Harmon to Pittsburgh, defensive tackle.
Just quickly on that, did you see the news about Derek Harmon that came about a couple of hours ago?
No.
So unfortunately, his mother passed away just after he was drafted, which was really, really, really sad news. He went straight from the draft to go and see his mum, who was in hospital, and she sadly. I saw that on posted on X before we went live. So obviously, thoughts and prayers to him, because that's horrendous, sad news.
Yeah, that's horrific, and that's why maybe people think before they should be tearing into these 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds for dropping a ball.
100%.
But best of luck to him. Horrible time. So 22, the Chargers went. Hampton, can't say his first name. But the running back, Omarion.
Yeah, that's how I would say it.
Spot on.
Green Bay went wide receiver with Matthew Golden. Vikings went offensive guard. Donovan Jackson, makes perfect sense. And this is where it got a little bit crazy, a little bit weird. New York traded back. Did they trade back into the first? Was they trade back in?
They did.
They did, yeah.
So they traded back into the first and went and got a quarterback. Jackson Dart, gonna be real. Don't know much about the kid. What did you guys think of this?
Do you want to go first, Ed?
Yeah, I think it was as soon as they came back on the clock, the cameras went straight to Shedeur Sanders, didn't they? And it was a case of everybody thought this was his moment. But I think it's a sensible pick. They obviously wanted him. They worried about somebody coming in at the start of the second and taking him. They've already took their premier player with their first pick, and Jackson Dart, who was okay, is a good player. Like you, Harrison, I'm not going to embarrass myself and pretend I'm an expert on college football. I did watch a few of their games last year because I like the SEC. I think it's a great conference, which is where he played for Ole Miss. But I think it's because he doesn't have to go there and play straight away. They've got Russell Wilson and they've got Jameis Winston, interesting room that's going to be, by the way. And he gets an opportunity to sit and learn for a year or two, possibly. So yeah, I think it's a good move, and they didn't have to give up anywhere near what the next team had to give up to get their quarterback for the future.
Yeah, we'll get on to the next team. But Nathan, do you want to?
Yeah, a really close friend of mine is a Giants fan. Shout out
I thought you
Reece.
were saying Jackson Dart's a really close friend of yours.
He's coming on the show. Shout out Reece. He's definitely not watching right now. He's just had a baby, but he is super happy with this pick. If I was a Giants fan, truthfully, I'd be a little bit annoyed. They gave up their pick 34 for this. Like, that probably fell to that anyway. But I imagine they were scared that someone else was going to, jump them and get there. And Cleveland, I mean, they've got 3 picks in the second round tonight.
Mm.
They're picking 32 and then 34. What a position to be in. What a position to be in.
Yeah, well, we will talk a little about the second and third rounds. Well, we'll talk a little bit about day 2 and 3 altogether. But let's move on. 26, James Pierce Jr. Any surprise there? The Falcons, did they trade back or up? Okay.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that was one of those. Go on, Nathan, you go first.
This trade is horrendous. What were they thinking, giving up next year's first as well for this, right? The Rams have absolutely fleeced Atlanta here. Pierce Jr. had 4.5 sacks last season. They gave up 3 picks for the guy. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow. They could have taken Samson Abukan off us for a lot less.
You probably could have got Trey Henderson for that trade. Like, what are they thinking? Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I actually laughed this morning when I seen it. I burst out laughing. I was thinking, you have 1 next year for this? Just crazy.
Ed?
I agree. I mean, it was one of those when they were announcing the pick before. I was like, in the background, I was like, does that say Atlanta are back on the clock? Like, because at this point I was starting to flag a little bit. I'm not going to lie. So am I starting to hallucinate? Like, I've been up for a long time. And it said, no, Atlanta are back on. So, they've traded back into the first round. So I was sitting there, I was thinking, who have they come back for? Like, who are they? Because to trade back into the first, usually, like New York, they've come back, they've got their quarterback. We can debate all day whether or not that's the quarterback for the future or not, but they wanted him, they've traded up and they've got him, and he can sit for a year or two. That makes sense. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, who are you coming back up for? And when they announced it, I was just a little bit underwhelmed, to be honest with you, because I didn't, and that's no disrespect, taking into account what we just said about these 20-21-year-old players. I'm sure James Pierce Jr. is going to be a fantastic player in the NFL, and I wish him all the luck in the world. But to give up a first next year for an edge rusher just seems a very hefty price to pay. When if you think, like Nathan said, that's what Cincinnati were asking for Trey Hendrickson. And that's a proven NFL caliber edge rusher. This guy hasn't played a down yet in the NFL, and there is a jump between college football. Listen, I wish James Pierce Jr. all the luck in the world. This is not a dig at him whatsoever. I hope that it works out for him. It just seems like a very rich price to pay. And unfortunately, as we know, when players are labelled with that tagline, that carries an extra expectation on it, doesn't it now? He's now going to be saddled with that. They traded back into the first to get you, so you need to be like Myles Garrett from day one, and that's going to put unnecessary and unfair pressure on the kid, in my opinion. So I'm very surprised, but the Rams are laughing all the way to the bank. That's as per usual. They'll still come out with somebody that nobody's heard of and will absolutely knock it out the park. You know it.
Yeah. We'll finish up then. So 27 player I like, Malachi Starks to Georgia safety. 28, Tyleik Williams, Ohio State D tackle to Lions. They're just getting better. Commanders took Josh Connolly, offensive tackle. Again, makes sense. Buffalo took Maxwell Hairston, cornerback. Another player who we was all hoping would fall to the second, but just didn't. Jihad Campbell went to Philadelphia. I think that's a great pick. And last but not least, the Chiefs took Josh Simmons, offensive tackle. The Chiefs and Philadelphia are not really worried about their first round picks. You know, they're just sort of they'll take who they take. But other than that, the biggest winners and the biggest losers, lad.
I'll start with the winner. I think it's Tampa Bay with Emeka Egbuka. They call it, they have a name for it. I think it's the boiler room or something. I might have to Google that so I don't get fact checked. Brian Hartline as coach now, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison last year, and Egbuka this year. And there's like a kind of whisper, and it has been for the last 3 years, that Egbuka is actually the best of all of them, which is, if true, that is an unbelievable caliber of player. And, it's like a Mike Evans succession plan for me. Like, I wish Mike Evans could play in the NFL every year. The NFL is going to be worse when Mike Evans eventually retires. But it's just a home run hit. When I saw the pick, I was just like, wow. I could see why they were celebrating. Ed?
Yes, I mean, other than the teams that we've already mentioned, obviously, I think Denver will obviously have to be up there with Jahdae Barron. I think Malachi Starks to Baltimore is a sneakily good draft as well. Their secondary that looks very good, and it's just another example of the good teams getting better. I will also say Philadelphia Eagles taking our man Jihad Campbell, who I think a lot of Colts fans fell in love with during the draft process. And Harrison, you made a great point before we came on air tonight about them being in a position to wait for him, essentially, because there's a chance he might not be ready to go day one. And, that's a team that doesn't need any more help, does it, anyway? Let's be honest with you, it's the current world champs. But yeah, I like Malachi Starks to Baltimore. I thought that was a good pick. And I also think as well, a bit under the radar, because it's boring. Nobody. It's not that nobody likes talking about sort of drafting tackles, because you do, because they're an essential part of the game. But I think New England taking Will Campbell, they've got to start building protection for Drake May, because Drake May does look like a dude. To be fair, he looks like he's going to be a real player, and they need to start protecting him. So I think it was a good starting block for them there. I like that pick.
Yeah, no, God, Mike Vrabel is the head coach at New England, isn't he?
Yeah.
It just screams of Mike Vrabel, doesn't it? It just absolutely screams of prime AFC South winning Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel. Hopefully not, because nobody likes the Patriots. But I mean, to keep it really simple, and this is a cop-out answer, so you can both hate me for this, but the Colts and Chris Ballard have won round one, if you ask me. Nobody. I think the reaction is nobody expected Warren to fall that far. And, people say, no, he might trade up. We know Chris Ballard, he doesn't trade up. So we was all sort of okay with not getting Warren. But whether he's won it by a technicality, by getting lucky. But before we move on to day 2 and 3, I just want to talk a little bit about our new tight end. Number 44 for Penn State. That will obviously ring familiar with Colts fans. It's got a great heritage, that number. But for me, like I said in our group chat, I've watched a little bit more tape on him now because we've got him. What I saw were three things: was accountability, which I'll touch on a little bit more, coachability, and reliability. And I think they're the three biggest things you can ask for an NFL prospect. And when I say accountability, I mean his quarterback looks for him, or his wide receiver looks for him when he's throwing a double pass to him. His teammates look for him. And here's a stat, gents. The last time a Colts tight end went for over 500 receiving yards was 2018. That's blasphemy. In the house of Dallas Clark and Jack Doyle, that is blasphemy. So it's about time we got our man. I mean, I'll give you guys a chance to expand now on, after you settle down, maybe had a nap, maybe stop drinking Red Bulls and eating beef jerky at 3 a.m., whatever your choice is. When you woke up after that nap, did you have to check, holy shit, we did actually get him? This isn't a fever dream.
Yeah, I genuinely did. The first thing I did this morning was go to the Colts Instagram page just to be like, yeah, it definitely happened. Yeah, Harrison, I think you gave it a great kind of, you put a bow on it quite nicely. And I'll try keep it short, right? Because I think I'm probably not going to shut up about Tyler Warren for the next 6 months. So I'll probably get a lot to say there. But he's violent. He's got insane hands. He's sneaky quick. He's like the Swiss Army knife. You can line him up either side. He can run every route you want. He can block. He can play running back. He's taken snaps at wildcat quarterback.
Been a centre.
Yeah, he's been a centre. And it's like Shane Steichen's creativity and this guy. That's probably a crap heart, right? But that's what I see, boys. That is what I see. Like I used to say in year one of Shane Steichen, Harrison, before Ed came along and before Southbound was even a thing, just let Shane cook.
Ed? Yeah, I think the other interesting thing about Tyler Warren is he started as a quarterback. I know a lot of football players do before they obviously, but that playing quarterback, as we know, you have to have a certain level of football IQ and understanding of the game. And to Nathan's point there, I said this last night, because I went on the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover show. Shout out to them. They asked, about Tyler. I said that one of the most exciting thoughts of this is getting a player like Tyler Warren and putting him with a football in mind like Shane Steichen, who has got a great football in mind. He really does. He draws up some great plays. So I'm excited to see what he can do with a really, really exciting weapon.
Yeah, and I really want to hit home on where this kid sits for me. I mean, get ready for a lot of tight end screens, a lot of double passes that will actually work against the Texans. That scout's still fresh, but I would imagine a lot of tight end screens, tight end wildcats, double passes. A lot of, like we say, Shane's a very creative man. I don't need to tell him what to call. But for me, and again, I've got to apologise for switching it back to football, soccer. Watching Arsenal, when Bukayo Saka, for those who don't know, is Arsenal's right winger, is playing, everything goes down the right-hand side. We look for him, we give it to him, he shoots the ball, he comes to the ball, he takes the ball. The other night we played Raheem Sterling. For those who don't know, his career's done. He's just not the same. It's quite sad to watch. We didn't go down the right-hand side once. Players were actively turning away and did not want to give him the ball. What I see with Tyler Warren, it just, they want to give him the ball. He was essentially Penn State's offense. Mm-hmm. Now, it's easy to say when the Colts haven't had a tight end room, he's going to come in and be tight end one. I think what's going to be more impressive with this guy is he's going to come in and be one of, if not our most important offensive player next year. I mean, I like the whole joke that they asked Chris Ballard if they saw what Michael Pittman said about bringing in Tyler Owen, and he just said, "Yeah, it's probably because he thought he was getting off blocking duty." No, so that's the last for those watching who are not Colts fans. That is the last bit on Tyler Warren, I promise. So day 2 and day 3, it's a bit of the mental time in it. I know we hype up day 1 because that's the big show-stopping finale or the opener, the curtain opener. But day 2 and day 3, anything can happen. Understudies going before the Masters, injuries. This is where the woodwork really exposes. So, I mean, I'm looking linebacker personally in day 2 for the Colts. What are you guys thinking?
I think linebacker is the next biggest need. I don't disagree, but I think we're going to see a day of trenches, to be honest with you. I think Ballard's going to look at defensive line and offensive line. He's going to look at shoring those up. And then I think he's probably going to look at linebacker, maybe day 3, later on in this draft. But I agree. I think the 2 biggest needs, we talked about it extensively, was tight end and linebacker. We've solved one. My logic would be go out and solve the second one now.
Yeah.
But I think Ballard's going to want to address the trenches. We've lost players there, both on the O-line and on the D-line. And I think that we know Ballard likes his trenches, and I think he's going to want to replenish those. And I think he sees the middle part of the draft as the perfect place to do that. That's my thought process. What about you guys?
Yeah, I absolutely hope it's linebacker this evening in round 2. I hope it's Carson Schwarzenegger. I always butcher that. Out of UCLA. Be pretty cool to reignite, Latu and him on a defense. And I just think they'd be a core part of our defense for so many years to come. I think that's really, really cool. I'm preparing for a trade back this evening. I think he'll definitely be open to picking up an extra second, and an extra third, maybe, if a team really falls in love with someone. If Will Johnson, corner Michigan, falls, I think we'd be idiotic not to take that guy. If I'm Ballard, I turn that pick in 10 seconds. And I worry about linebacker later on. I have a little bit of a dream for who I want in round 3, though, which you can hear it if you want, or I'll put it in private in our group.
No.
I really want them to take Harold Fannin Jr., tight end, in round 3. I want us to double dip and just have the most crazy offense we've had in years. It's a serious prediction, though. I just think that it'll just be insane. To go from having no tight end room to having 2 of the consensus top 5. It would just be amazing. It'll be a meme, but it'll be amazing.
I mean, we do need 2 tight ends, I would say. So as much as I love it, it's not a very Chris Ballard thing. I couldn't say I'd personally be against it, but I think realistically, I'm going to call it Schweinsteiger because that's how I would say it, but it's not. But if it's Schwarzenegger, we'll find out.
Yeah.
If he's not available, it is going to be trenches. I'm not sure which side first. Probably we're very thin. Put it that way. We've got very thin, very quick on the trenches. and Mr. Ballard does not like that.
No.
So, I mean, I suppose you sort of touched on it, Nathan, but I was going to ask, have you got any, like, if we're at 45 and our guy isn't available, but, you know, there's an unreal player still available or someone who's falling, is there anyone coming to mind that you think, yeah, fuck that, let's just take him for the meme, like you say?
I mean, there's a few there. I mean, Nick Emmanwori's still there. I don't know if he's still going to be there at 45, but here's one for you, because obviously he is a safety. I think we're okay there. I wouldn't necessarily spend a second on a safety now, but in a Ballard-esque move, could you see us taking someone like Nick Emmanwori and trying to convert him into a linebacker, given his size and his ability? That would be something that I could see. I've been thinking about it for far too much of my day, my sleep-deprived day. I've been thinking about these sorts of things. And it is something that I could see us doing. But then I argued myself out of it by saying, I don't know, if you want to get a linebacker, just go and get a bloody linebacker. Like, stop messing about with trying to get somebody and convert them. But that's something that I had toying around. And I like him as a player. So that would be somebody that if he was available and there was nobody else like trenches that were worth taking, I'd say, yeah, F it, take him. Because you can never have too much extra support, and there's the opportunity to convert him.
Nathan, you talked about day 3, day 2?
Yeah, I've just been double checking to see if he fell, and he actually did. Ed took the name out of my head, so I'm going to try and go 2 different ways here. First one would be Will Johnson. I'm going to commit to that. If he falls, I'm turning that in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, dream pick, right? Our secondary just becomes even better. The other one is Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia. If we can get him, I need to see Ballard's face when he's available at 45. I mean, wow. You know, we get a tight end of the future. We get a guard that can play day one if needs be. From Georgia, they're just pros. You know, they're just elite pros these days. I mean, I'd be ecstatic if that happens. So yeah, I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go Tate Ratledge. Tate Ratledge is my dream. If Schwarzenegger is gone.
Yeah.
And he's got a sweet mullet to line up next to Bortolini as well. So we'd just be like, we just have that, and then Warren lining up with his locks. We'd just be rocking 80s hairstyles all over the shop.
Yeah.
The one thing I did want to touch on before we ended, this is a bit weird and a bit of a different. I don't even really know how to explain it, but the whole Shedeur Sanders situation and his camp give me a really bad vibe. It's a bit, I think the kids say pick me. It's a bit pick me terms, quite literally. He put out a video saying about, we didn't expect this. And I'm just like, this seems a bit ill-informed for someone whose dad is, Deion Sanders. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it, really, because I didn't really expect him to go in the first anyway. And all the mock drafts I saw did not have him going in the first. So, I just wanted to get how you guys saw it, how you guys felt about it, like the whole situation.
Yeah, I'll start here. I think Shedeur's been an interesting one. I don't want to say that I don't like the camp. I mean, being the son of Deion Sanders carries or must carry an insane weight and, an insane level of expectation. What Sanders has done at Jackson State especially was pretty epic. Obviously goes to Boulder, makes that program insane too. But I mean, I would never have put him as a top 5 selection, even if Cam Ward didn't declare. I would not have put Shedeur in my top 5. I really thought Pittsburgh was a good match for the guy.
Yeah.
I think New York would have been a great market for like his character and, kind of what that camp brings. Because let's be honest, Deion's going to be involved as well wherever they go. But yeah, I mean, it sort of reminds me of a quote Charles Johnson said last night. Do you think Lamar worried that he was taken 32nd overall?
Yeah.
I think that's what, because I think we've been pretty sensible this evening, right? And in the build up to the draft, where I think we are, advocating for the protection of players and,
Always.
not like bringing them down or whatever. That's what the Sanders camp needs to be saying to him now, is ignore it. Wherever we go, we're going to take over. And, good on him for kind of backing himself today and saying, all of you have kind of messed up on me. I think that's the best way I can say it, boys.
Yeah, I'll let Ed jump in a sec. I guess bad vibe is not the right. It just felt. I don't feel like he wanted to put that video out.
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying, mate, for a second that I'm not trying to insinuate that that's what you meant either. I totally get what you mean. It was more like the league is hammering him right now, aren't they? And the media are hammering him right now. Just wanted to say that. And back to you, mate.
Yeah. Ed?
Yeah, I think he's just become this. There's two ways to look at it. He's become the story of the draft, even though he's not been drafted yet. Everything last night was always, where's Shedeur Sanders going? Where's Shedeur Sanders going? Where's Shedeur Sanders going? Is it going to be New Orleans? Is it going to be Pittsburgh? Oh, it's not Pittsburgh. What's going to happen now? New York have traded back in. Is it going to be Shedeur? He's become the story of the draft, and he's not even been drafted yet, which I don't think I can remember or there ever been a time when a player who hasn't been drafted has got this much coverage without going in the first round. So I feel a bit, he doesn't, and the thing is, he doesn't ask for that. Like, he's not said, like, I want everybody to talk about me. That's just what happens by the nature of the name, his dad, where he was before. I found myself last year, to be honest with you, watching Colorado sort of games and highlights on YouTube because I wanted to, because Shedeur Sanders was playing there and Travis Hunter was there as well. And I did like watching Travis Hunter. So he gets eyes on wherever he's going to go. There's going to be eyes on. There's going to be intense scrutiny, and I think that he doesn't ask for that. And I think I don't know. I don't know where he's gonna. I don't know where he's gonna go. I don't know if the Browns are going to take him off the board early tonight, or if he's still going to be sitting there by the end of tonight. I think if either one, I wouldn't be surprised if that makes sense. I know that sounds really mad, and that in itself is mad for a player that's getting this much attention. Do you know what I mean? I think everyone just kind of needs to. I don't know. There's how many players are getting drafted? 200 and something, and one player seems to be getting all of the headlines, and it's not even been picked yet. And that's I just think that must be. I can't imagine. How old is he? What, 20, 21?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got that much sort of eyes on you at that age, man. That takes a mental. Whatever you want to say about his ability as a quarterback, he must have the mental strength to deal with that kind of pressure. You know, fair play to him. He's going to get drafted. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I think I did hear an interesting line about, you know, our team's a little bit scared of his dad, maybe in the nicest possible way, you know, because where he goes, his dad will have something to say. Like, you know, as you know, I'm a father myself, I will always want what's best for my children. Of course I will. You know, that's being a dad. Wherever he, you know, and if you're a head coach who's maybe a little bit on a hot seat or a warm seat, do you want Dion in the press sort of every 5 minutes saying you've done this wrong, you've not done that right, or you should have done this, you know? And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you know, maybe that's a factor. I don't know. I just feel that everybody just needs to maybe back off Shedeur a little bit, and let's just get back to looking at the draft and the players who are actually getting drafted. And when Shedeur's name is called, I hope it's a good fit for him. I hope it works out well. And I hope that we can then just get on with the draft. That's kind of my thoughts on it, to be honest with you. I think he's taken up an awful lot of media headlines for somebody who's not yet even had his name called. But good luck to him wherever he goes. And like Nathan said, he's done at college football. He turned around 2 programs and brought a lot of eyes to those programs as well. So that deserves recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it was for me. It's no slight on the player because I can barely throw a 5-yard slant. Do you know what I mean? But I think his camp and even his dad have maybe gone the wrong way about it, and not. It just feels that I feel like he's probably, you know, when the camera's not rolling, going, Dad, can you just be quiet? Dad, don't say anything. Oh my God, Dad, just you know what I mean? Like it just feels a bit like sometimes when you're the shadow, you have to realize maybe I should just step back and let him have his moment before posting a video, before, you know, like, again, no disrespect to Deion Sanders either. Obviously a great servant to the game, and he, like Ed said, deserves the best for his son and will do the best for his son. But sometimes, you know, you've got to let your kid graze a knee to understand that running over freaking hurts. But yeah, again, if he falls to the Colts at 45 and take him, I'm not going to hate him. I just found the whole situation a little bit strange. But anything else?
I mean, well, I was just going to say that'd be a curveball, wouldn't it? If the Colts decided to draft Shedeur Sanders after the whole quarterback battle, let's put a third one in there just for.
Chris Ballard, you can write them narratives.
Oh no!
I mean, technically, it'd be a four-way quarterback competition with Tyler Warren, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think Adnan Mitchell would like go after that horrendous attempt he had last year.
I think we're all going a bit mental, but boys, anything else to add before we wrap up and see what happens in day 2?
No, just hope for Schlesinger prepared for a trade back and go to bed. That's probably going to be my evening. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to say we hoped for Tyler Warren. We got Tyler Warren. So I'm praying to the draft gods that we get Schlesinger. We've been Southbound. This has been the NFL Round 1 draft recap. We look forward to day 2. I promise we do talk about other teams, not just the Colts. So if you are still watching, thank you. And if you support these other teams, comment and tell us why we're wrong, that all other draft picks, apart from Tyler Warren, is an absolute bust. See you all later.